This video here was entirely generated by this workflow, and I'm honestly sure that it is going to blow your mind just as it blew mine. So check this out. In this particular video, it is showing the evolution process of humans, as you can see from the title. And the text on the screen here, which again is also completely automated, shows when each of these species, in this particular case, cyanobacterium, lived in. And the one at the bottom here shows the period they lived in, okay? So with that said, without wasting any more of your time, I'm just gonna click on play. So that was the video. I'm hoping that at the very least you are intrigued, because keep in mind the entirety of it was generated by this workflow here that we see to the left. And I think that it is insanely cool that we are able to automate content of this caliber just like that. And if you notice, even the differences between the speed of transition is relative to the gap between two species, right? So you can see how it's going relatively quick here compared to now, exactly. So you can see it's slowly going down, and that's basically depending on, again, the gap between two different species. So we have a completely dynamic system that is automated for us. So I think it is insanely cool, to say the least. And the backstory to this is, or where I got inspired for this idea, was when I came across this account on TikTok. I think they are brilliant. You can see here they have one for the evolution of chicken, which got 36 million views. And then they have another one for the evolution of gorilla, which got 26 million views. And not only that, they also have the same concept applied on different scenarios. For example, they have the evolution of civilizations, like the ones here, the evolution of Egypt, the evolution of UAE, the evolution of China, and even applied on individuals. So we got the evolution of Pope Francis, of Ferruccio Lamborghini. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but I think you get the idea here, right? And as soon as I came across this account, I was just instantly intrigued, which made me wonder if I could actually automate the generation of contents like these, which is what led me to actually build this workflow, which took me over 30 hours and well over $50 to build. And honestly, when I first began, I was not even sure if it was going to work. You can see here, I even have a post in my community saying, hey guys, I'm attempting to do something crazy, right? So I was not really sure if it was going to work, but thankfully I was really pleasantly surprised when I saw the result, because I think that it looks beautiful, right? Especially the fact that it is 100% automated. And it makes a lot of sense that these kinds of videos are much more likely to go viral, simply due to the fact that they are actually informative, and platforms like YouTube and TikTok value these kinds of videos. And the second big reason to this is the fact that it has a higher barrier to entry, meaning it is harder for creators to create content of this caliber, which in return reduces the saturation in the market, meaning there is more demand to less supply. And that is the second big reason. My goal in this video is to show you exactly how you can build this workflow yourself and start generating your own videos. And the way we're going to do that is by first executing this workflow, right? So that we can see it in action. And when we do that, for those of you who are not familiar with N8N, it's also gonna give us what we call an execution log, where we can basically see the input that goes in each of these nodes and also the output that comes out of it, so that way the walkthrough would be more informative. And another awesome fact about this workflow is that we are using FFmpeg, which is a free alternative to tools like Creatomate, which costs around $50 per month. And even with that, it has limits. So with FFmpeg, we are basically doing all of this for completely free without paying a single penny, okay? And however, for us to be able to use FFmpeg, we would need N8N self-hosted. So in this video, I'm actually going to also show you a quick way for you to be able to self-host N8N locally on your computer with FFmpeg so that you can run this workflow directly. And so we're going to start by doing that. We'll set up our local N8N instance. Then we're going to execute this workflow. And then I'll walk you through each of these nodes step by step to understand exactly what's going on under the hood. One more thing, I am gonna, as always, be uploading this whole template to my premium community. For those of you who don't know, I have a community which is currently at 69 members, and here you get tremendous value for your money, like the template in this video, which took me over 30 hours to build, and much more than that. I have many other templates as well. Apart from that, you get personal N8N tech support by me, 3 live calls per week, deep dive courses for things like building effective agentic systems. Once you're in, you can just head over to the classroom section and then go over to all my builds. Once you're in here, look for Evolution Timelapse videos to get the resources for this particular video here, and you can scroll all the way down, and as you can see, all the resources that I'm going to be showing and using in this video is attached here. But now let's continue to the video by talking about the prerequisites for having N8N locally set up, right? If you don't already have, you will need to download Docker and install it to your computer. So head over to docker.com, and then once you're here, just download and install the version that is suitable with your operating system. Once you're done with that, what you'll have to do is simply head over to your desktop and then create a folder wherever you like. Okay, by the way, once you have Docker set up, you should be able to access the desktop app just like this, and you can see that I have a container that's running, which is actually this exact one here that I showed you the example on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this so that I can start from absolute scratch. Okay, and so we have that deleted, and again, I'm going to go back to the folder. And once we are here, if you're already in the community, the only thing you'll have to do is you just have to download this one here. Okay, all right, so there you go. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to move all these files here to the newly created directory I have. Okay, and don't worry, even if you're not in the community, I am going to be sharing the resources for this particular step in the description of this video, so you can just go over there and download these file and also this folder here, and you'll basically be good to go. Again, you need to have Docker set up and installed for this, right? And once we are here, what we'll have to do is we simply just have to run this command. Yeah, this command here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this command, and I'm going to go ahead and open a terminal within this directory. So make sure that it is in this directory, right? And just paste the command that you just copied just now. And once we do that, what it's going to do is it's basically going to start running these files here, and by executing them, it is going to be downloading N8N along with FFmpeg to our Docker. And once it is done, we'll be able to simply just run it. So for this, I'm going to go back to the terminal, and you can see that we have our new container created. Okay, and so once you're here, you have 2 ways to get access to your newly created N8N instance, and that is by going to your browser and typing in localhost what was this, colon 5678, which is the default port that N8N runs on. Okay, then click on enter, and basically you'll just have to sign up. The other and simpler way to do this is by just clicking on this hyperlink here that says that's under ports, right? Once you do that, it's basically going to do the exact same thing. So in here, let's just set up our account real quick. I'm going to type in my name. I'm going to click on next. And once you're in here, if you click on send me a free license key, it is going to send you a license key directly to your email, which allows you to get access to all of these community edition features for completely free, which is super cool. So I'm just going to do that. Okay. And you know what? I'm actually going to also activate it so that I can make sure that this tutorial is as beneficial as it can get for you. Okay. Go to your email, click on activate license key, and finally you can see that you are on the community edition. We have our license activated. All right, perfect. So now with this, you basically have N8N locally hosted with FFmpeg, which means that you can ditch tools like Creatomate and JSON to video, saving you more than $50 every single month, which I think is super cool. And once you're in here, you can either click on start from scratch, which is going to do the exact same thing as clicking on create workflow. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on create workflow. This is going to create an empty canvas for us, right? And if you are a member, in this case, what you'll have to do is you just have to simply download this template that I have here. And once you're done downloading, you can just head over to this three-dotted button here and then click on import from file and just select the file that you just downloaded. And once you do that, you are going to have the whole thing imported to your canvas. Okay, and once you're done with this, you'll have to set up two more things, and that is going to be getting your OpenAI's key, because we are using ChatGPT as part of the workflow. And another thing we'll have to set up is the credentials for FAL AI. So without wasting any time, let's get directly into it. Okay, first let's set the credentials for GPT. So for this, what you'll have to do is you'll have to click on this drop down here. Actually, first click on this tool here and then click on credential to connect with and click on create new credential, right? And now let's just click on open docs to look for the URL we can go to in order to get our API key. You can see that it says log into your OpenAI account or create an account. So if you don't already have an account, you can just continue with this step here. In my case, I already have an account, so I'm just going to click on open your API keys page, right? And here I'm going to create an API key. For that, I clicked on this button here and click on create a secret key. All right, so I'm going to copy this and then go back to our workflow here. And I'm just going to enter in the API key that I just copied, right? And I'm going to call this OpenAI, okay? And I'm going to save this one here. And with that, we now have our GPT credential set successfully. Once we do that, we'll also have to just simply configure it for this tool here, which is also for using ChatGPT, right? And you can see that once I clicked on it, it automatically got mapped with the credentials we just created. So once you create a credential, you can reuse it on other components that are related, okay? And the next thing, like I said, we'll have to set up is FAL AI. And for this, what we're going to do is we are going to head over to FAL AI, and you'll have to create an account for this as well. And for those of you who don't know what FAL AI is, it's basically a website that acts as a centralized hub that hosts a bunch of AI models like the ones that I'm using in this video, right? In my case, for this particular workflow, I'm using two different AI models. One of them is text to image, and the other one is for transitioning between the first image to the second image, which is what we're going to be covering soon anyway. So that's basically what this is, right? And once you are here, you'll have to create an account as well. And once you do that, you will also have to create an API key, just like we did for with OpenAI. So for that, I head over to API keys page. I'm going to click on add API key to create a fresh one. So once I do that, I'm just going to click on copy key. Okay. And in this case, what we're going to do is we'll again click on header auth, right? But for this dropdown to appear, you first need to set authentication as generic credential type. And for the generic auth type, you'll have to select header auth. Once you do that, this dropdown is gonna appear like so. And once it does, click on create new credential. And in here, this is going to be slightly different than how we set up for our OpenAI, where we will have to do some configurations. For that, I'm going to go to my community here, and I'm going to look for the authorization setup for FAL AI. As you can see, what we need is we need to type in authorization to the header. So I'm going to do that, authorization. And then for the key, we have to first prefix our API key with the word key. Okay, I'm going to do just that. And then I'm going to add in a space. Once I do that, I'm going to paste in the key that I just copied just now. So I'm going to also name this, by the way. I'm going to call this FAL.ai, or I'll just call it FAL. It's descriptive enough. So once I'm done with that, I'm just going to go ahead and click on save. And with this done, I'll just need to do the same thing for these ones here. And as you remember, I told you once you save a configuration, it is going to be saved, so you can reuse it with other components that are related. So again, I'm using that for this, and they are automatically being set, so that's super cool. I just have to basically click on it and it does it for me. All right, and once you are done with this, you basically have the workflow ready, and you can just start executing this directly. Okay, and to demonstrate this, like I said, I'm going to first execute the workflow so that we can see it in action. Then we can walk through the execution log step by step for the walkthrough to be more informative, right? And for this example, I want to make it simple. So it's like, maybe I can go with the evolution of human, okay? Evolution of human. And for the species, I'm going to say hominids. I've been, like I said, I've worked on this workflow so long that now I already know the names of our lineage. So I think hominids, then after hominids, we got Homo habilis, all right? And then I'm going to enter Homo erectus, and Homo sapien. All right, perfect. Now I'm gonna go ahead and click on save. And once I am done with this, I am just gonna go ahead and execute this workflow so that we can see it in action, right? But I also wanna grab your attention to this folder that we have here called shared, because this is where it's going to be adding all the resources, all the raw materials, and also the final output too. So as we run this later, we'll also check what's going on within the shared file. But before that, I'm just gonna go ahead and click on execute so that we can start seeing what happens. So let's see what the result looks like. I'm going to go to the shared folder. So again, this is the shared folder within the new folder we just created. And you can see there is this new folder created again within it with a random ID. We're going to be talking about this in just a bit. But when I click on it, you can see that we have all the videos stored within this directory, right? We have all the trimmed videos, we have all the initial videos, then we got the final output, I was lazy to rename this. We got final output X, and this is our actual final video with all of the text on screen. So let's take a look at how it turned out. All right, so there you go. As you can see, in this case, obviously, we just had 4 different species that equated to 3 different transitions, and each transition takes around 5 seconds, so that adds up to 15 seconds in total, okay? And now that we have that out of the way, we can actually start looking at this workflow step by step and understand exactly what's going on under the hood for us to be able to get to this final outcome here with all of these transitions and also text on screen. By the way, just a quick interjection from the future. If you're enjoying the video, please consider leaving it a like or even a comment, as engagement truly helps with the outreach of my video. But yeah, with that said, let's continue back with the video. All right, so now going into our manual trigger here, as we saw earlier, we have this data pin, we have the title, and also the name of the species, right? So for this, what I want to do is, because I want to actually go step by step in this video, I am going to do it from scratch with you guys so that you can just basically follow along if you want to build it yourself, okay? So in this case, I'm going to do the exact same thing as I have done here. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new trigger. Okay, I'm going to call it manual trigger. And this is where you can basically select the nodes you want to add to your canvas. And then I'm going to also rename this to execute to match the one that we have here, all right? And for this, for the value, I'm just gonna, to not waste any time, just copy this and go to this new manual trigger that we created and just directly paste it here, okay? With that, I can click on save, and now whenever I execute this workflow, it is going to output this value. Now, going back to our original workflow, let me just discard this, perfect. The next output is of 2 different paths, and the one above, what it does is it basically creates the directory where we're gonna be adding, or where we added all of our files into, right? Which is this one here. So this is where this particular directory got created. And the first thing that we do here is we generate the directory ID, and that's what this code node here does. Its only job is to create the name for our directory, and the output here is exactly that. So when we actually compare this with the name of our directory, you can see that it's the exact same as it, so they match exactly. And for those of you who are complete beginners, whenever you click on a node, the left side of the panel will correspond to the input, which basically means what gets passed to a node, and the right side, as can also be seen from this label here, corresponds to the output, or what gets generated by that particular node, right? In this case, as we talked about, this node here only generates the name of our directory. So you can see the output here is a field called directory and the value for it, right? Okay, so what we're going to do next is we are going to create this code node here. For this, you'll have to click on this plus sign and search for the code node. And once you're done with that, you're just going to go ahead and copy this. Of course, I'm just going to copy this to not waste time. and I'm gonna go ahead and paste it here directly. Then I'm gonna call this generate directory ID. So again, to match exactly, right? Generate directory ID. Perfect. I renamed this. And now when we execute this workflow, you can see that we now have the exact same thing. Obviously, the ID here is going to be unique so that it doesn't clash with the previous one created. And the next node that we have here is the execute command node, which is what we're going to use to actually create this directory, right? And the execute command node is what allows us to execute commands within the environment that our N8N instance is running in. And in this particular instance, we are running this mkdir that basically says to create a directory within this path here. And this is where the input panel comes into play. So what we're doing here is called dynamic expressions. So we are taking the name of the directory and directly passing it to this node or this command here in this case and executing it, right? So this part here becomes dynamic, and we are getting this from the output generated by the previous node, which now is the input for this node. So let me actually just show you what I mean. So for this, we're going to create an execute command node, right? And then, this one here. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy all the way up to this part here. And yeah, perfect. Okay, so now we have the static command here. But what we're trying to do is we're basically trying to create a new directory based on the output generated by this node here, right? So what we need to do then is we know that the output of the previous node gets passed to this node as an input, right? So that's where we're going to basically benefit from. I'm just going to grab and then drag and drop it into our command here, and make sure to remove the space in between so that you don't encounter any issues, right? And now with this in place, we would be able to dynamically create new directories on every execution, which is super awesome. Now for this, I'm just gonna again rename this. I'm gonna copy this, right, and name this the exact same. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click on rename. Perfect. Now we have this part of the workflow complete. Let's continue with the next part. And the next part is a split out node. And what we're doing with the split out node is essentially or simply just basically grabbing the list of species that we had specified in the execute node earlier. And as its name suggests, we are splitting them out into individual items. And the way we're doing it is by specifying the fields that we want to split out. And in our case, we know that our list stays in the field called species. So we are saying, hey, look for a field called species, grab that and split that field out. Okay. And this is to the right, the output of that process. So let's go ahead and do the exact same thing in our case here for the new workflow. Split out node. Awesome. Let me get this, and then I'm gonna call this split out. Okay, since it's already named that, I'm gonna call this species. And you know what? We can actually execute this workflow now, and when we do that, we will start seeing new directories being created. Let's actually do that just for the sake of this, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and click on execute workflow. Once we do that, as you can see, we now have a new directory created. So everything is working perfectly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with the next part of the workflow. And here we have an LLM, or you can just call it AI agent at this point. This is what everybody's calling LLMs or AI in general. So I'm just going to call it AI agent since it's a buzzword now or a buzz term. So in our LLM here, we pass it a system message, and what we are using this LLM for is just to generate the prompt for generating these images, right? That's the only thing that we are using this for. We are basically saying, hey, I'm going to give you the name of the species, and based on this instruction here, come up with the prompt that I'm going to be passing to the image generation model, which is what we're going to be doing in the next node. And so this is the system message, okay? And the next thing that we have here is the user message, and in the user message is where we pass the name of our species. And for this particular case, we are using require specific output because we wanted to generate a structured output. And you can see the output for this particular run here is structured, right? We have in each of the output, we have the name of the species, the prompt. Okay, this is what gets passed to the image generation model, and then existed, which corresponds to million. So every one here equals to 1,000,000. So in this case, this is 20 million, not 20. And then we got the period that this particular species existed in. And so for that, we clicked on this thing, we toggled this on, and for it, we have to configure within this output tool node here, telling it the format that we wanted to output in, right? So without wasting any more time, let's get right into business in our new workflow. I'm gonna go ahead, look for LLM, and then I'm going to attach this to our OpenAI model, right? As in the beginning, we already created an account for it. So now we are able to reuse our configuration. So I'm gonna be doing that. Perfect. And I'm also gonna rename this workflow here. I'm gonna call it species prompt generator. Let me just go ahead and copy this. Perfect. Rename it, paste it, nice. And now we also, again, have to go in, click on require specific output, toggle that on. I'm gonna go in here, just, again, copy and paste this. Output parser, structured output, perfect, paste it in. There you go. Now with this, we have to set our system prompt. And for the system prompt, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy paste this again. Okay, paste this one in. Perfect. And wait, let me just note, I think I did a mistake. Did I? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go in here, copy this, and paste it directly like this. Awesome. And now for the user message, we're gonna say define below. And what did we do here? We pass in a label for it. We're saying, hey, the species, right? So that it understands that this is the species we want an output generated for. And again, we're gonna be using the input section of this panel here to get, or to what was the word here, to select our species. Okay, perfect. Now we got this out of the way. Let's also rename everything the exact same thing, just for the sake of what we began, like what our convention was in the beginning. Start 4.1 and then output. I'm going to name this the same. I'm going to call this output. Perfect. And now let's execute this workflow. I know this is going to create another directory, but let's just see what our output looks like right now, right? Awesome. So this is our output. As you can see, we got hominids, Miocene for the period and stuff. So now we got 4 different outputs, one for each of the species that we specified in the execute node. So this split it out into 4 different items. So you can see it from this edge here. So this LLM got executed 4 different times, which ended up with 4 different outputs here. Perfect. Now we are done with this part. Now in the next part, we have a code node, all right? And in this code node, what we are doing is we are simply just adding the evolution number. And I just basically use this to tag each of the items or each of these species with a number in an incremental order. So you go, or manner, right? We got evolution node 1. The second one gets evolution node 2, evolution node 3. You'll understand why or what we will be using this for. So this is as simple as that. So in the previous output, we only, if you notice, have had these 4 things within each of these outputs, right? So prompt, species prompt existed, period. But when you look at what gets output by this code node, is additionally another field within this output, and that is the number of evolution, or evolution number for this particular species. And in our case, we're starting with hominids, so that's why it is set as 1. So I'm going to go ahead and create another node, code node here. I'm going to type in code node. Perfect. And I'm just going to copy this. So nice, by the way. I'm actually enjoying this more than just like describing to you guys what each of these workflows does. So pretty fun. I feel like I'm going to do this more often. Okay, perfect. Now we got this part done, right? And if I run this, we're basically going to be doing the exact same thing. And what we have here next is the part where we're actually going to start generating images for each of our species here, okay? And I want to do something here to not repeat to not re-execute whatever we already executed. And for that, what we can do is we can just go ahead and pin this data here. For those of you who don't know what this does, is it basically prevents these things from rerunning again. Instead, it will just output whatever it already output previously. So if you look at how fast this is going to process or complete, you can see it basically did it instantly. I can also pin this. And there you go, we have the output now. So it will make it easier for us to test along the way, right? Instead of having to rerun everything from scratch. And this way, we are also not going to be creating new directories, by the way. All right, perfect. We got this part here. I'm going to be adding a HTTP request node for this, okay, we got our HTTP request node. What is the name for this? Generate image. So I'm going to go ahead and say generate image. Perfect. And now what we are doing here is we are hitting FAL AI's API, which we talked about earlier in this video. And we are specifically telling or instructing it to send a request to this URL here. And this is where we're using their text-to-image model, right? One of their hosted text-to-image models. And to connect to it, we need to pass in the correct URL, aka destination. And for the method, we are using post. So we are going to be doing the exact same thing with our new workflow. Set the method as post. And then for the URL, copy this and then paste it here. Authentication, do the same thing. We got generic credential type. Okay, we have to first specify this as that or set this as that. Then we got generic auth type. We are going to be doing header auth. And then for the header auth, we already had this configured earlier. So now, again, we can just reuse it. Simple as that. For the body, I'm going to click. And okay, so let me first explain what's really going on here. Then we have the send body. This is basically the parameters of our request. Whenever we send a request to this URL, we are basically also telling it, hey, this is what we want out of this request, right? And what we pass in as the input parameter is the prompt and also the aspect ratio. The prompt is, as we talked about, is created by our LLM earlier. And the aspect ratio, we're telling it how we want, obviously, the aspect ratio. In this case, we want it to be vertical. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this again and click on send body here. And then look for using JSON and click on expression. And I'm going to paste this one directly here. Again, for this, the prompt here, I'm getting it from the output of our agent. All right, actually not the output of our agent, since the last node is this code node. So what we're going to do here is we are going to be leveraging again the input panel that we have connected to this node and grab the prompt within it. Okay, so we grab that prompt and make sure to put it within the quotes here. Otherwise, you would run into an error because due to format mismatch or corrupted format or whatever it is called. But yeah, with this now, we will be able to generate images by sending requests to FAL AI. The next node we have here is the wait node. And what we're doing with this is after we send a request, it takes time for our request to actually complete, right? So you can see the output of our request here. The status says in queue. It takes time for the status to, again, become complete. So what we're doing is we're saying, first wait for 2 seconds. And since this is image generation, it's relatively quick. So 2 seconds is enough. But you can see here, it actually took around 15 seconds for it to complete anyway. So we might benefit from increasing that. So what we're doing here is essentially saying, hey, once we send a request, wait for 2 seconds, then poll for the request, like for the status. We're saying, hey, what's the status for this request? And the next node here is a conditional node or an if node that says, if the request is complete, then proceed with the workflow. Otherwise, loop back to this wait node and wait for another 2 seconds before checking the status again. Then basically repeat this until the process is complete. Now let's get that one out of the way as well. Let's go in and add a wait node here. I'm gonna set this as 5 seconds instead, and I'm gonna name this wait 5 seconds. Okay, wait for 5 seconds. No English, RIP English. Wait for 5 seconds. Awesome. Now we got wait for 5 seconds. Then we got check image status. I am going to create another HTTP request node. Okay. And then for this, we are going to be using, what am I doing? We are going to be using this URL here, which as you can see is dynamically created based on the request that we are sending. Every request that we make returns us a status URL that we can use in order to poll for the status. So once you send a request within this node here, this is going to return again, a status URL. Actually, let's test this one out so that we can see it in action. Okay. And then we'll just pin this one anyway. So click on execute workflow. That was a problem executing workflow. Cannot be fixed. Oh, okay. It doesn't want me to. All right. So I'm going to first remove this and I'm going to execute the workflow. All right. Perfect. So I'm going to pin this request now, or the result of this request. And you can see here that it returned us a status URL that we can use in order to poll for the status of our request, right? And what we're going to do then is we are going to wait for 5 seconds, then go over to the HTTP request node and configure this. So for the URL, I'm going to grab the status URL, right? And for the authentication, we're going to be doing the same thing, generic credential type, header auth, and then setting the header auth to FAL that we just configured again earlier in the video. So this one here is perfect. It's complete. Let's check the name for it. Check image status. I'm going to do the same thing again. All right, awesome. Now we got that one ready. And the next node is going to be our if node, right? And let's add that node as well. And so what's happening here simply is it's looking for all of our items, that all of our requests. In our case, we have 4 requests, and it's saying if it's looking for the amount of items within our request that its status is in progress or in queue, and it's checking for its length. So it says if it's 0, it means that all of our items are either complete or there is an error occurred. So just continue with the workflow. Otherwise, repeat this process once more, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this again. And by the way, I accidentally chose the switch node. I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to select the if node here. And then I'm going to add this again to set this to number, all right? Is equal to, and I'm going to say if this guy here equals to 0. All right, perfect. So this, if it's equals to 0, then you can proceed with the workflow. Otherwise, repeat this particular process one more time. So I'm going to click on execute workflow so that we can see what the result is like, right? All right, perfect. You can see that the status of the items here have been completed, and completed. Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to also pin this the output we got from here, and also pin the output here so that we don't have to wait another 5 seconds next time. And in this case, we can just close this one so that we don't have to look for the for the condition, since we know that it is complete. So this part here is unnecessary anyway, right? And the next part of this workflow, we are going to get the download URL of these images. All right, so this time we're going to be grabbing the response URL from the output of this request that we sent. All right, so for that, again, we are going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and look for the HTTP request node, and the method is set to get. Okay, and for the output here, again, what I'm going to do is, let me just wait, why can't I just grab it directly? Okay, I think I need to turn this one on for a while. Let me just turn this on and execute it. So annoying. Okay, wait, I'll execute this workflow first, okay? And then I'm going to add the HTTP request node. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the response URL here. And for the authentication, again, we will have to authenticate because this is still private, okay? So for that, I'm going to go ahead, look for the header auth and the configuration that we set earlier in the video. Again, I selected that. And I think that's pretty much it for this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, what's the name for this request here? It says get image download URL. I'm going to copy this and rename this exactly that, okay? And then I'm going to click on execute workflow so that we can see the result for this. And you can see that we got the output for it. Perfect. So we got the URL here, the content type, file name, etc. We are only interested in the URL here, okay? And the next node that we have here is the download image node. And honestly, this is not really necessary because, wait, is it necessary? No, it's not necessary because we already have the download URL. But the reason I put this one here is because when I was like building this, I like to look at the images that has been created directly from here, right? So just for this, I'm going to add it there for you, show you how to build it so you can use it yourself as well. So what we're going to do now is create another HTTP request node, and we are going to be downloading these images basically, all right? And we're going to call this download image. And for the URL, we are going to be grabbing the URL of the image, all right? Just basically go back to the input, look for the response from the previous HTTP request node, and drag and drop the URL. And once you're done, this time we won't actually have to authenticate because the download URL here is now public, so it could be accessed by anyone, right? So if I went over here and I copied this, okay, if I went to incognito window and I just paste it there, you will see that we can actually access it. But in the other case here, if I try to, let's say, get access to this URL, then you will see that it's not going to work because we are not authenticated. Oops, sorry, wait. There you go. You can see that it says cannot access application. Authentication is required to access this application, right? And that is why we needed to do these configurations here. Anyway, let's continue with our workflow. I'm gonna pin this one again, and also this one. No, actually, we haven't run that yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and execute this workflow. Awesome, we have this one also out of the way. The next node that we have here is the set fields node, okay? And in the set fields node, what we are doing is we are basically just combining all of the relevant fields that we will need for the rest of the workflow and adding it, combining it with our image URL. That's basically what we are just doing here, right? So we are going to be doing the exact same thing here as well. I'm going to create a set node, all right? And I'm going to call it, what is this called? Set fields. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Once you're done that, click on manual mapping and then drag input fields here, right? Look for the, oops, what the hell did I do? Let me just put this back. Okay. So we are looking for number the videos. Wow, did we pass that already? Yeah, that's number the videos, right? Yeah, okay, all right, correct. So what I'm going to do is we are going to look for the output from the node called number the videos. Did I do that? Okay, so here it is, right? And we are going to be grabbing the evolution node. All right, I'm going to do this evolution node. And then I am going back to the, where is it, bro? Number the videos. Okay, here. Evolution node. And then I'm going to add another one here. And then looking at it, we got the species. Perfect, species. Pass it here directly. And then another one, we got the prompt, right? So I'm going to pass in the prompt here as well. And I'm going to name this the same thing. And for the image URL, we are saying get image download URL. Okay, not download image, but all right, get image download URL. And we are grabbing this particular field here, obviously. And let's see. That's it. With that, we have our workflow complete all the way up till here. Let's execute this workflow and see where we are standing. Perfect. This is now the current status or the state of our workflow. The next thing we are going to be doing is we are going to be grouping the evolutions. And for this, I'm using a code node. And basically what I did here was I used ChatGPT to come up with the logic. And what we're trying to do is we're basically trying to group these evolutions, right? We want evolution number 1 to be combined with evolution 2. So we are trying to basically transition the image of the first creature to the image of the second creature, or to the second creature. And that creates the illusion of evolution, right? So we got evolution number 1 here, and then we got evolution number 2 here. And the second one, we got evolution number 2 to 3. So we first turn from 1 to the second creature, then the second creature turns to the third creature. Then you can see that the third creature then turns to the fourth creature, right? So that's exactly what we are doing with this node here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and create another code node here. All right, I'm going to paste this directly inside. And once, let me just rename this. Okay, just go ahead and rename this. Awesome. Now we got this one out of the way. All right, so the next node that we have here is the transition prompt generator LLM, or again, AI agent, whatever you want to call it. This is also connected to ChatGPT, right? Specifically 4.1. And this time what we are trying to do is the instructions that we are giving here is for how it should generate the transition prompt. And before I explain exactly what I mean by transition prompt, let me show you the model we are going to be using for generating these transitions, right? So this is the transition model, and this is how you can use it on FAL AI's website directly. So you pass in the first image that you want to generate from, and the last image that you want to generate, that you want to transition from, right? Transition to, right? And then we pass in the prompt, And this is basically the transition prompt. This is what I'm referring to when I say that. So it says scene slowly transition into cat swimming underwater. And that's basically it. Like what we're doing here in this case is we're telling this agent to generate this particular prompt here. And the way we are doing it is by passing the from and the to prompt for the evolutions that we want to make. And what I mean by the from and the to prompt is the image generation prompt. So let's go back to our download image, or actually the group evolutions, right? So we got these evolutions. So we're trying to transition from hominids into Homo habilis. And for generating the hominids image, we use this prompt here, right? And in this prompt, you're actually describing the action it is making. For example, it could be like finding fire, like the action could be like the guy creating fire or whatever. So we passed in this prompt to generate the image. Then for Homo habilis, again, we passed in another prompt. And the reason we are passing these prompts to our transition prompt generator is so that it can understand the context, right? It can understand what the hominid was doing before it transitions into habilis, in which it should also know what it was doing there, so that it could create a nice transition in between. And so that's basically what this guy here is only doing. And you can see that we got the output here, and these are the outputs, right? So an adult hominid strides steadily in the center of the frame, upright yet powerfully built. Its strong, long arms partially fixed, flexed as it moves towards with a confident, blah, 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 and so on. And for the other transitions here as well. And this is where we send request to this particular model here. But this time we're not using the website, but instead we are sending a request to their API using this HTTP request node, right? So let's go there and actually let's set this up in our new workflow. First, let's create our LLM. Let's set another basic LLM chain. Gonna add this to the next section and connect this to another GPT, chat GPT, right? You could also, by the way, instead of this, we could also do it this way, right? Just to let the ones that are beginner know. All right, so I'm gonna first rename the node here. I'm gonna copy the name for this, and then paste it here and rename it as that. Perfect. And next, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, perfect. I select define below for source for the prompt, right? And before this, actually, let me just add some value here to not to fix the error. And I want to execute this workflow so that we can get access to the value generated by group evolutions, right? And we did just that. And for the user message, I'm going to pass in from, right? And then I'm going to drag and drop prompt here, all right? The from prompt, perfect, like that. And I'm going to remove the space here. And then I'm going to add the to prompt and then grab it from, again, the to part, right? This to field here. And we got the to prompt as well. And for the system message, I'm going to add, okay, perfect. We added a system message. And then I'm going into the workflow here or the node here. And I'm going to copy this and set this thing as expression, expand this and paste this one here. For those of you who are not in the community, this is what it looks like, okay? And with this out of the way, what I'm going to do is we are basically done with this part here. Let's actually just execute this node one more time so that we can add our new checkpoint here. Perfect. I'm just going to go ahead and click on pin and pin this data or the node. So this is our output now. We are actually almost there, guys. So now we are going to be generating this video. So we have to send a generate video request. So I'm going to go in and click on HTTP request. And then we are going to be sending this request, a post request to this following URL that we just copied. Okay, I'm going to pass it to the URL field here. And again, for the authentication, we have to authenticate generic credential type, then header auth, then FAL AI, perfect. And then we are going to have to set our send body as well. There we go. And for the body content type, I'm just going to specify body. We're going to select using JSON, okay? And I'm just going to copy this directly as well, but we are going to be looking at what exactly it corresponds to. There we go, perfect. So We got our prompt, and this is the transition prompt. We got our aspect ratio, the aspect ratio we want our video to be generated in. And then we got our first image URL, right? When we go back here, this is our first image URL, and then the last image URL, which corresponds to this part here. And then again, our prompt goes directly in here, right? And apart from that, we have a negative prompt. This basically tells the AI the video generation model what not to do, right? This is the opposite of prompting, and that's called negative prompt. With that, we have this part complete and ready as well. And what we are going to do next is we are going to set another wait node here. And since we are already done with this part previously, we can just go ahead and copy this and paste it directly inside. Okay, so I'm gonna just do that directly. Nice, perfect. So instead of waiting for 5 seconds this time, let's wait for, let's say 15 seconds, okay? And I'm gonna rename this to that as well. Awesome. And then, nope, I'm gonna unpin this for now. All right, unpin and unpin. For the image status, we are gonna change it to check video status. All right, and for the URL, I'm guessing that it is the same since it's the same website. So we got the status URL, okay, status URL. So basically, the only thing we had to do was just change the name for it, the name of the HTTP request node. But for the if here, what did we name our if? Our image is ready, our video is ready. Let's actually rename them as well. So I'm gonna call this, our image is ready. And I'm going to set this to our videos ready. All right, awesome. Now with this out of the way, guys, we can actually re-execute this workflow to send a request to the video generation model. Let's hope for the best and hope that it is working. I'm going to pin the data that we got as an output, okay? And now we're going to be waiting for 15 seconds and basically wait for this whole process to complete, which I think is going to take around 15 seconds, 20 seconds. All right, awesome. So we have all the items complete, and the next thing we are going to do is we're going to be getting the video download URL. This time, as you remember, we first previously got the image download URL. So we can actually just, again, do the same thing here. Just copy and paste this, okay? And make sure to unpin this because we're going to be using the new data. And I'm going to just rename this to get video URL. Awesome. And once we do that and once we run this, we should actually be good to go. I'm just going to pin this dude here and also this node here. And once we do that, let's see what happens. All right, guys, so I had to restart the whole system because I, like an idiot, pinned this data when the status was still in progress. And that caused it to basically start looping infinitely, right? Because as you remember, when we pin the data, it basically just creates a checkpoint. And every time you call this this node next time, it's going to be outputting that same data. And because I pinned this when the request was still set to in progress, this loop continued forever. And which is why I had to like force reboot the whole thing. And because of that, we'll also have to continue with our original workflows execution through the execution step. But yeah, with that said, let's rerun this workflow here to see where we stand. All right, perfect. As you can see, we got this video downloaded and now I can pin this data. Actually, I'm still gonna shut this one off just in case. All right, perfect. So we got the output here and you can see that these are the URLs for our video. And the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be downloading these videos, right? So we just need to get the video URL. And again, the best part is we already have this download image HTTP request here. So I can basically just copy this and paste this one here. Or you know what? I'm just going to create a new one. I don't want to be doing any shortcuts since this is actually trying to show you how to build this whole workflow, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the URL here. And for this, we're going to look for the we're going to drag the URL from the get video URL. Perfect. And I think that's it. But we could also set these options here. I'm going to click on add options, go in, click on response, and then I'm going to say file, all right, because we are downloading it as a file. Perfect. Once we do that, we are pretty much done. All right. I'm just going to pin this data here as well. And we should expect this to download the videos for us. And I'm also going to be changing the name of this request node to download video. Just going to name it as it loads. Oh my God, I think rename. Okay, wait, let me just cancel this execution and rerun it again. All right, perfect. So now we have our videos downloaded. And as you can see, this is what it looks like. It's turning from a hominid to Homo habilis. Then we have Homo habilis turning into a Homo erectus, right? And finally, we have Homo erectus turning into a human or Homo sapien. Perfect. The next part of this workflow is going to start becoming the part where we're actually going to be downloading these videos that we have here, right? So we downloaded this video, but we have to write it to the disk basically. And that is what we're going to be doing with the next section of this workflow. And for this, we are using the write file to disk node. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to look for write files. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to be writing to file. So writing to disk. So I'm going to select that option. Okay. And for the path we want to add our file into, we are going to be selecting the ID that got generated or the directory that got generated in the beginning, at the beginning of the workflow, right? So we got this ID here. So we need to be looking for this directory. And when we look at how it was done here, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this to make it easier. So let's go ahead and click on expression. And you can see that what we're doing essentially here is we are saying, hey, put it in the shared folder, within the shared folder, within this directory here, which we already created, and then call it video. And then we're passing in the video number .mp4, and the output becomes for this particular video as this one here. So it's called video1.mp4. Okay. All right. So now let's actually name this node here as well. Okay. I'm going to name it to write videos to disk. Perfect. And then should we like execute this workflow first, or should we just continue with the next parts? I think we should do that first. Okay. And what we're doing with the next execute command node is where we are actually starting to use FFmpeg. And first thing we are using it for in this particular instance is to trim the video to exactly 5 seconds, because the video that gets generated by the model is not exactly that. It's like, I think 11 milliseconds more than 5 seconds. And what happens when we don't trim the video to exactly 5 seconds are these brief pauses in between transitions. So whenever a creature evolves to the next creature, it will pause for, again, 11 milliseconds before it continues progressing to the next one. And that is what we are aiming to fix here, right? And for this, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say, hey, get an execute node, execute command node. Okay. And I'm going to just paste this one in here directly, since we know what this is doing. By the way, I would also want to grab your attention to the fact that when you want to use these dynamic fields here, you will have to use the expressions field. Otherwise, it wouldn't work, because as you see, when I move it to fixed field, it's just basically going to be static data or static text in this case, right? This is not what we want. We want it to be dynamic so that it can actually pass in the values in real time. So let's name this to trim to videos to 5 seconds as well. Okay. And then once we are done with that, the next part of this workflow is going to be where we are going to start combining the videos and audios together. And for this, we'll have to first create a new text file that contains the locations for the videos we want to merge, right? And that's basically how FFmpeg works. And I'll show you exactly how it looks like in just a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this the code here in the command node. And I'm going to look for the code node, okay? Code node, perfect. I'm going to paste it here. Once we are done doing that, we now have the content for the text file we are trying to create. Now we need a convert to file node. Convert to file, okay, perfect. Convert to text file, perfect. And the configuration for this is operation being set to convert to text file, and the text input field that we want to use is going to be content. And the reason to this is because when you look at the code node, you can see that we are outputting an object with a field called content, right? And so that's why we are basically saying, hey, use this field as the content for the text file we are creating. And we can also name the file here. So we are going to do the same here as well. I'm going to call it videos.txt. Awesome. Now I'm gonna, get them closer. The next part that we have is going to be writing this text file to disk, okay, to our directory in this case. I'm gonna create another write node. Then I'm gonna select write files to disk. And for this, when we look at the options here, we are again writing to the same exact path using the generate directory ID that we generated again from with this node, right? So I'm gonna be doing the same thing once again. I'm just gonna copy and paste it here directly at this point. And with that, we have this part of the workflow also ready. So up until now, what's gonna happen is we are gonna be trimming the videos to 5 seconds, creating videos out of them. And we're actually gonna be calling each of them trimmed video, and we're going to see the outputs in just a bit. But right now we also created the videos.txt file and we are writing it to our directory, okay? And so actually I want to execute this workflow so that we can see where we are at right now before we actually continue with the next part of the workflow. And you can see here that we got an error because apparently this particular directory doesn't exist. Let's see why that is the case. So we were able to write it here in this case, but for some reason here we are not able to do that. I wonder why that is. All right, so when we look at this, we can see that the directory definitely exists from what I understand here. And one more thing I noticed here is the fact that we only have a single trimmed video while we had to have 3. And the reason to that is, I think, exactly, yeah. So the reason to that is because in this case, we should not be executing this node as only once, but actually once for every video. And because we set this to execute once, it only was able to generate trimmed video for the first video, and it didn't do it for the other 3, right? So the other 2, sorry. So I'm gonna actually delete this and rerun this workflow just to make sure like we have all the trimmed videos before we continue taking a look at the error. So here it says directory doesn't exist, which is interesting. And I think I know the problem to this as well. All right, yep. The problem to this is because I forgot to add a slash before data, and that is why we were running or bumping into this error. Okay, so I'm gonna remove these videos once again and execute this so that we can hopefully see how things work, all right? Okay, perfect. So this time we were able to trim all these videos. So we have trimmed video 1, trimmed video 2, trimmed video 3, and then we had the original videos that we downloaded here. Okay, so we first download these videos, then we write them to disk, and by this point, after this node here, we have all these videos, and then after we execute this node here, it generates all of these trimmed videos, and once we enter this code node, then convert it to file and write it to disk, we end up with this text file, which as you can see, it's a list of the directory of the address to each of these trimmed videos, which is what we're going to be using to combine them, right? So this is how FFmpeg works. Apparently we need to list them in a file like this and then execute the next command that we are going to be looking into now. So you can see here we have another execute command node called combine all videos. So we are going to do just that. So I'm going to look for another execute command, and then I'm going to say execute once, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it directly again. And this time what we are doing is we are basically, as you can see, it says concatenate. That's the only thing I understand from this code here. It basically goes into the videos text file, concatenates all the videos, okay, and generates a file called final output.mp4. And at this point, we already know exactly where what these here correspond to, right? So we know that we are trying to basically again create a video to in this directory, and also we know that we are trying to look for the videos.txt file in this directory again. So once we execute this command, which again is called combine all videos, so I'm going to rename this as well, combine all videos, okay, like that. It is going to do just that, and we'll have a final a video called final output.mp4. And after we are done with that though, we want to also merge audio and video. For the audio, what I did was, you probably noticed from the beginning that I have an mp3 file here, which is basically where I've been keeping the audio, right? Every time we run the request, this audio file is gonna live outside of these created directories, because we obviously don't want to recreate this audio file in this, at least in our scenario, in all of these directories, since it's going to be the same for all of it. So I just put it in a shared directory here, and that's how we're going to be combining the video with the audio, or merge the video with the audio. I'm going to copy this command and create another execute command node, and then I am going to just paste it here. And we're doing again the same thing. We're looking for final output.mp4 file. We're combining it with the audio mp3, and we are just merging them, and we are generating a new file called, or a new video file called final underscore output x.mp4. I was just lazy to change this. It stayed that way. And once we're done running this command, we will have our video all combined and also merged with the audio, which is super cool, right? And by the way, I just use ChatGPT and Gemini in order to create all of these commands. So it's not that I know how to build this, but it's as simple as literally just telling or describing what it is you're trying to achieve to ChatGPT or Gemini, you know, whatever AI you prefer, right? And it will be able to spit out the exact command you need for it. So it's really simple. And now the next node we are going to, or the next part of this is the coolest part in my opinion. And that is where we are going to be generating the text on the screen, where we'll be able to see all of the trends, the periods, the name of the species, the countdown of the years. And this is the part that is actually responsible for that, okay? But before we get here, I want to just go back to our folder, and I'm going to remove this again, all right, just for the sake of being able to see exactly what's going on. Okay, we are rerunning this whole thing, downloading the videos. You can see how it just does it so fast. So we have our trimmed videos, and then we have our final output. This is without the audio, right? So if you run this, you see that it has no audio. There you go, no audio. But if you run the one with audio, you can see that it indeed does have audio. This is just awesome, man, honestly. But yeah, now to continue with the next part of this workflow, we want to generate text on screen. And honestly, this is, again, something that I vibe coded using ChatGPT. What we're essentially doing here is we're essentially generating the content of another text file, and we're going to basically be using the generated file as the caption, or even you can think of it as a subtitle file, right? And that is what we're doing in this code node. We are generating the content for it. Then again, we're converting it to a text file, and then we are writing this file to our directory. And finally, we are running this command here that combines our final output video that we just saw just now with the audio with this subtitle.txt file we are going to create and merge them together. And once it does that, we have our final output, which ends up super awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this again. We are almost there, guys. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to create another code node here. Okay. And then once we're done with that, I'm just going to paste it. All right, perfect. I'm going to call this generate on screen text. All right, once I do that, I have to, again, create this convert to file txt and all of those jazz here. And you know what? This is too simple, so I'm just going to copy and paste this, since you guys must be a pro by this point. We literally generated an insane automation together. So we got convert to file. I'm going to call this convert to OST file. Okay, let's follow the convention, convert to OST file. Okay, and I'm going to call this subtitle.txt, right? Subtitle.txt. Finally, we got the here. Just copy paste this. Actually, we don't have to. We just have to change this to subtitle. Okay, we are adding it to the same directory. And then we are doing one last thing, which is generating or creating the captioned version of this video. Just creating this execute command node, and then I'm going to paste in here. And with this command ready, we should have our workflow complete, guys. This is exciting. And let's see what happens once we run this workflow again. I'm going to do it from scratch, meaning I'm going to remove all the videos we generated and the files to see everything reappear again. Okay, executing it. Let's see what happens. Hopefully no error. Hopefully, oh no, we did not see it happen yet. So let's see what error we encountered here. So it says referenced node doesn't exist, line 4. We are looking for the execute command node. Ah, okay, I see what the problem here is. So apparently our node here is named execute with a space, right? But our one does not have space. So we just have to remove the space here, and this should hopefully fix our problem. So it was just a reference issue. I'm gonna re-execute this workflow, and hopefully the download video part doesn't take as long. And by the way, if anyway, it's already done. I'm just, oh my god, all right, we got another issue here. Let's see what that is. Unterminated quoted string. What are we talking about? Oh, okay, yeah, all right. Another mistake here. I'm so sorry, guys. We forgot to add a quote here for specifying the location. That's what happens when you just copy and paste directly. I'm gonna delete all of these once again, and I'm gonna execute the workflow. With this, we should hopefully have. There's literally no way it's not gonna work. Come on, download video, work quick, quick, bro. Okay, perfect. Is it gonna work? Yes, it is. It is. We are there. We are there. Come on. Yes. There you go, guys. And this is the final output of our hard work. Beautiful. That's it, guys. Like, I hope you enjoyed it. That's pretty much what it is, and I hope you can understand how crazy the fact that it is, the fact that we can just automate again contents of this caliber. Like, I can't imagine where we are heading towards. There are so many things we could apply this same concept to, by the way. Not only this, but just automate many different kind of things that I'm gonna be continue sharing in my channel, also in my premium community. So be sure, by the way, to check it out. There is again a lot of value for your money. I don't think you would regret joining it. But apart from that, I also have a free community where I also occasionally share the resources of my videos in, and it is at 4.7K members. So feel free to join. But once more, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful. And lastly, if you did enjoy this video, please consider leaving it a like, a comment, or even subscribe, as engagement truly helps with the outreach of my videos. But with that said, have a great rest of your day. Peace.